Okay, so we are going to get started here right now with the live recording of class again today. Oh, just, you don't have to type anything specific. I'll just add it to the comments. Okay, so we are once again as soon as we get some of this stuff out of the way, starting off today with our class. And so today's lecture is again entitled Economic Geography of Latin America. And so last week we looked at Latin America from an economic standpoint. Some of the terminology that you hopefully became more aware of was the GNI PPP per person. We also made note of the economic sectors that are dominant in various nations in Latin America compared to others, or really compared to the United States. And so we always try to use the United States as our grounding point because that's where we are. We are in the United States, like it or not. So for instance, just let me toss out a question to the live audience here. And don't worry, you won't be on camera. If we were to compare, say, the proportion of the population employed in agriculture in a poor country, relatively poor country like Honduras to that of the United States, approximately what percentage of the population of Honduras would you expect to be employed in agriculture? Well, let's ask first about the United States. What percentage of our workforce in the United States would you say is employed directly in agriculture? 7? Yes, it was less than 1%. Well done. What about for Honduras? What would be the percentage of the population in Honduras that you might expect to be employed in agriculture? Well, just give me a number. 40%. So let's look that up, shall we? Let's see. See, that was Honduras. See how close we're going to come. That's a good guess. I'm not going to, that was a good guess. It's a reasonably good guess. Okay, let's go to Honduras. So the guess was 40%. So there's Honduras, by the way. Central America, Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, all there together in Central America. Go to economy. So the labor force. Oh, very close. Wow, it's unbelievable. No, it's believable because, of course, we're at Tennessee State University. So, of course, our students here actually took a look at the textbook between whatever it is you all do on the weekends. It's probably not gonna say anything. studying. Of course, you were so busy studying, didn't have time for anything else. Didn't even watch. I bet you all didn't know that there was a huge upset in sports this weekend because you were too busy studying, right? Of course, you didn't hear about that huge upset in sports because you were just so busy on your grind this weekend. Anyway, so given that, what did we learn about this? And we have a country that has this significant percentage of its population employed in agriculture. What does that say about this country, perhaps? What is one thing that might say about this country?
You leave agriculture, or like a large percentage of labor in agriculture, to lower economic growth because raw materials don't produce as much or a high enough revenue as like a service or company with a service like.
Yes. So the student answered correctly that one of the indicators of a country that is most likely to have a low GNI PPP per person is a significant percentage of its population employed, not only in agriculture. Agriculture is which one of the 4 sectors that we probably learned about last week? Yes, it's a primary sector activity, along with mining, fishing, and so on and so forth. Any activity, economic activity that involves the direct extraction or exploitation of natural resources would be deemed a primary sector activity. So we also learned that there have been efforts to move away from the relatively low-income status, this relatively common status of where many countries in Latin America have historically had their economies dominated by agriculture or some other primary sector activity. There was a term that we might have learned last week that refers to a country whose economy is dominated by 1 or 2 export crops. What's that term that we learned last? Yes, Banana Republic. Yes. Banana Republic is not just a store in the mall. Banana Republic refers to a nation, usually a nation in Latin America, that has its economy dominated by a single crop. And you can see how tenuous a situation that might be. A country's entire economy is not only just based in agriculture, but just one crop that could become diseased. There could be some form of natural disaster that wipes out the entire crop, and we wind up with an economy that is in peril almost instantaneously via some phenomenon over which human beings have no control. We have zero control over whether or not a natural disaster takes place. That's why it's called a natural disaster as opposed to an anthropogenic disaster. An anthropogenic disaster is when humans cause a disaster. So the key prefix there is anthro, which is a prefix that represents humans, like anthropology. Anthropogenic, human cause. Okay, so one of the things that we looked at in terms of one of the primary means of measuring economic status for these countries is the GNI PPP per person. So what is the approximate GNI PPP per person for the United States? What do you, anybody venture a guess at that? What's the United States GNI PPP per person? Approximately. We were batting 1,000 for a while there. Yeah, $56,430 per person per year. And so, of course, the United States ranks amongst the wealthiest countries in the world, with the relatively high GNI PPP per person. And so we've been using the World Population Data Sheet as our, which was produced by the Population Reference Bureau, as our point of information for various data, including economic data. And so here we can see that the world's average GNI PPP per person as of 2015 was $15,415 per person per year. And as the student correctly stated, the United States is at $56,430 per year, according to this source. And so if we look at some of the countries in Latin America, including Mexico and Panama, you notice that there's quite a difference. There's quite a significant difference in terms of GNI PPP per person between our country and the other nations, especially those in Latin America. But one thing that I'd like to point out is that we have to have some form of understanding about what we mean in terms of comparison. It's just to give us a perspective on where we are relative to the rest of the world, because most of us really don't think about it. We think about the United States, and that's pretty much it. We don't think about other parts of the world. But let's take a look at our textbook, page 485. I have to do it this way for those. So on page 485 of the textbook, there's a very interesting table here, or graph, excuse me. And it's a graph of Latin America's GNI PPP per person relative to the world. Okay, just give you a perspective on where we are. So if you notice, what this graph represents is a range of GNI PPP per person from the highest to the lowest in the world, broken up into what we call quintiles. Okay, so here's the fifth, top 20% of countries range from $14,000 to really more than $60,000 per person per year. So if you notice, Trinidad and Tobago and Mexico are both in that upper range, but look at how wide the range is, 60,000 to 14,000. And remember, the world's average GNI PPP per person is around $15,000. So in relative terms to the rest of the world, is Mexico a poor country? No, it's in the upper fifth. And remember what we learned about Mexico City? What's going on with Mexico City and its water? We learned last week. It's not like it is here, is it? So it's not anything like it is here, except maybe in Flint, Michigan. But in Mexico, that's normal. That's normality in Mexico. And of course, United States, the situation in Flint, Michigan is extremely abnormal. So the next time you all are, I know you all probably went on spring break, and I know a few of you probably went to Cancun, right? But next year, when you go back to Cancun for spring break, don't just stay in a resort. You know, there are trips that you can take. You know that Cancun is in Mexico. Didn't know that, right? So the next time you go back to Cancun, or maybe you haven't gone yet, but when you go, or if you go to Cancun, I'm sure you will, because that's why you're here. Partially is to become some form of professional that has an income where you can afford to go to places like Cancun. But don't just stay at the resort. The resort's nice. The resort will give you a fantastical view of Mexico. You know, it's food, it's safe, laying up by the pool, you're going down to the beach. But they do have tours that will take you away from the resort and off into places where actual Mexicans live. And you might be shocked. You know, a few minutes away from where you're in the sauna, relaxing, getting the tan, right? Or getting more tanned. There are people who are living in shacks with dirt floors and animals like running through the shacks. And you're like, wow, really? This is what's going on? And so there is a significant disparity between the wealthiest nations and even the upper middle class nations in the world. Just to give you something to think about when you travel abroad and you think, well, good grief, if this is Mexico and Mexico is upper middle class, what's it like in Honduras or Uganda or Swaziland or Bangladesh? You know, what's it like there? Just to give you an idea. But one of the things that we must consider when we start to look at nations is that we can't assume that because people happen not to have the material things that we do, that it's just depressing, and it certainly is no secret that a lot of the world's nations or people want to be like us. They want to have the material things that we have here in the United States. Obviously, clean drinking water is something that's material, that's very important. But people want to live our lifestyle. That's why they come here to some degree, is for money. But we cannot assume that money or having money is the only way to measure economic health and wealth. So what's that saying? Money can't buy what? Can't buy happiness. I know that a lot of you all don't believe that yet because you're young and you've never had any money. And you think, as soon as I get my money, right? Whoa, right? When that day comes, you're gonna be happy all the time, right? You just have a cash machine. But there's plenty of people that have lots of money. What about Whitney Houston? She was rich. What happened to her? Died in a bathtub, drug overdose. What about Michael Jackson? He was fabulously wealthy. What happened to him? Died. Couldn't sleep. What about Robin Williams? Remember him? Comedian, right? He killed himself, right? So you can't say that just because any individual or any nation has wealth, that everything's great. Is everything great in this country? We're the richest country in the world. Everything's wonderful in the United States, right? Look at our president. I mean, it's great, isn't it? Aren't you glad that you're here? Of course not everything's great. So we can't use just economic wealth in terms of dollars to measure what's happening in the world. So we use another measure so we'll go to page 62 in your textbooks. Maybe you've taken a look at this. On page 62 of your textbooks, this is just for those who are going to be watching the recording. So on page 62, the textbook is something that's called the Human Development Index, otherwise known as the HDI. And so the Human Development Index is a more holistic way of measuring wealth. It's called the HDI, Human Development Index. It includes life expectancy, educational attainment, health, as well as income. So it says some countries that are materially poor, right, but invest heavily in education, healthcare, such as Costa Rica. So let's look at Costa Rica. What does that mean in real terms? Just heard it means. So let's go back to our table, just in case you. Okay, so so let's look at Costa Rica. So Costa Rica on the screen here. GNI PP per person of $14,880 per person per year. Even lower than Mexico in terms of their economic status. We're just talking about pure dollars. That's where Costa Rica is, as you can see right here. United States, again, $56,430 per year. So let's scroll down the table. Get to the second part of the table, life expectancy. So of course, the United States life expectancy is 76 years for males, 81 years for females. That's great, wonderful. Let's see, let's look at Costa Rica. Well, wait a minute. Costa Rica's male life expectancy is 77 years for males and 82 years for females. Like, well, wait a minute. How is that possible? Right? I mean, aren't you shocked by that? Aren't you just a little bit surprised? How many people are surprised by these numbers? How many people just don't give it? How many people just breathe if you're surprised? Yes, you're breathing. So I'm sure you're surprised by those numbers. I mean, you certainly would not expect for a country that has not even a third of our wealth, right, to have people living longer than they do here. How is that possible? How is it possible that, let's look at some other variables. Okay, let's look at some very critical variables. Costa Rica versus the United States. Oops. So here's infant mortality, right? So infant mortality is definitely an indicator of health. Clearly, the most vulnerable people in our population are children. Children, especially newborns, first year of life, you're helpless. You can't feed yourself. You can't do anything for yourself. If you don't have another human being, you're not going to make it, right? So that's one of the most vulnerable sector of our society are these newborns. And so the United States, our infant mortality rate is 5.8 per 1,000 babies born die within the first year of life in the United States. In Costa Rica, it's slightly higher, but it's 8. It's not much higher. Look at the rest of the countries in Central America compared to Costa Rica. Belize, it's 14. Guatemala, it's 28. Even in Mexico, it's 13, right? So even though Costa Rica has less than a third of our wealth, their infant mortality rate is not that much different from the big, bad, rich United States of America. So when we look at these two nations, United States and Costa Rica, this should raise some very serious questions for you in general. But maybe you know this, maybe you don't. There's one huge thing that Costa Rica does not have that the United States has. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a hint. Your president right now wants to significantly increase expenditures in this particular area that Costa Rica does not have. What area am I talking about? Military. All right? Military. Costa Rica doesn't spend any money on military. Right? They spend money on health, education. Right? So with the little bit of money they have, it goes towards the people, right? Not this military killer machine like the United States. Let's just talk about the United States for a minute in terms of what we do. I'm sorry, those of you who are flag waving patriots, about to get your feelings hurt right about now. All right. Okay, taxpayers, here's where your money's going. This is where your money's going, taxpayers. And this was under President Obama. Here's the military. Almost 600 billion, 54% of the money that you pay in taxes goes towards the military. More than half. Let's see, what else do we have in our country? Let's see, where's education? Let's see, can I even find it? There's education, it's 6%. Military, $600 billion. Education, 6%. 70 billion. Housing, oh boy, we need housing, right? That's 63 billion. Science, 29 billion. Security, food and agriculture, only $1 billion. $600 billion. These are all those are average. No, that's the budget. There's no average. That's 2015. Oh, that's 2015. Yeah. So you probably are wondering, I don't know if you've probably wondered about your country in terms of, you notice that we're always involved in some kind of military conflict and have been. There's always a war going on in some way at some point. You notice that? You notice that after September 11th, we had two choices after September 11th. Right? We could either bomb somebody or try to work it out by some alternative means. What do? Yeah. September 11th, 2001 happened. October 7th, we, United States, invaded Afghanistan. Right? Then 2 years later, on Dr. King's birthday, we started to bomb Iraq. Right? So, given what you see here, now let's break it down even further. I'm not telling you to be unpatriotic, but do you want a lie? Do you want a sugar-coated lie or the bitter truth? What do you want? What do you want? I can lie to you today. I can lie to you and tell you all kinds of stuff that's not real about. I can tell you all about Christopher Columbus and George Washington and them and Thomas Jefferson. I can tell you that they didn't own slaves, but that would be a lie, wouldn't it? Or maybe I just leave that out. Let's look at something else here. Let me just brighten up your day even more. I don't know, can y'all see that? Oh, it's just good. You can see that flag, right? Here are all the arms sales in the world by country, the whole world. The United States alone sells more arms globally than the rest of the world combined. Just us. So let me ask you a question. Based upon the evidence you've seen here, what's more profitable for our country, war or peace? War is more profitable for us. If you want to kill somebody, come to the United States. We got all kinds of stuff for it. This is how bad this is, okay? Some of you might know this. You might have, maybe you yourself have friends, relatives, I know I did, who served in Iraq. What was the number one weapon that was used against our soldiers in Iraq that caused the most deaths and injuries? Number one weapon. What kind of bomb? IED. What does IED stand for? It doesn't stand for old. It stands for improvised explosive device, right? See all those soldiers coming back, one leg, one arm, no legs. Improvised explosive device. Do you know that there was an investigation conducted on those IEDs? Guess where a lot of the parts of the IEDs came from? Here! Remember Malcolm X said something about chickens coming home to roost? Remember that? So now we have a president that wants to increase the military budget by another 10%, as if we're not spending enough. What is it that he wants to cut that 80% of students at this university have? What kind of financial aid specifically? Pell Grants. Y'all should be marching in the streets. Peacefully marching. Don't burn anything down. Don't be like me. I used to belong to a black militia. Don't do that. No militia. No militia. Yeah, I showed y'all a photo. I showed y'all the pictures, right?
No.
Well, this is being recorded, but I don't care. Man. I might not be able to find it right away. I don't know. Let's see. Black. I didn't show you my black militia photo. That's usually the first day of class, in case people were wondering whose class they're in. Sure you want to take this class. Y'all can be all in my Kool-Aid now. See, those are the students that went with me to New Orleans, including Kamal. Went to New Orleans with us. He can see. I am nice sometimes. Oh, we're recording live. Sort of. Let's see. See, I can safely show you my photo. Y'all can't do this. Y'all are scared. Oh my gosh. Oh, the photo of me. Well, there it is, right there. That's easy. I got lucky today. Yeah. So this is me. I was probably 25 years old. Yeah, I belong to an armed militia. We're going to overthrow the United States by any means necessary. But don't do this. No, not you. No. Peacefully, please, peacefully protest. So their brothers might be time to suit up again. That was the day after the election. So it's time to suit up. Okay, y'all. This is being recorded. But anyway, how do we get off that? What's that? The day after the election?
Nah, you reacted angry on the.
Yeah, I was angry. Certainly wouldn't happen. Anyway, so the Human Development Index, again, when we start to look at Costa Rica's HDI being relatively high, it's because it's not whether you have money or not, it's what you do with it, right? So if you have a country that invests over half of its money in the military, and you have people in the streets. Did you know that if we took, if we just doubled the education budget, which wouldn't be, if we took maybe 10% of the budget away, let's say from the military and invested in education, you know that we would have the first 2 years of college should be free for everybody in this country for the first 2 years. Did you know that? Just, do we really need to be armed to the teeth like this? How many of you all have seen a movie called Bowling for Columbine? Bowling for Columbine. If you're black or white or whatever, especially if you're black, you got to see it. I know you didn't. Medea's not in it. I'm sorry. So maybe you didn't get it. Maybe you didn't catch it. It's a Michael Moore movie. Really, any movie by Michael Moore. I mean, yeah, it's called Bowling for Columbine. You got to see this movie. This movie, you'll be like, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. You got to see this. A lot of black people didn't go to see this movie because it didn't have Medea in it, or Denzel, or Vivica Fox. But go to see other movies besides the ones that you are supposed to go see. Yeah, Bowling for Columbine. And then after you watch this one, then you've got to watch Fahrenheit 9/11. Anybody see Fahrenheit 9/11? Yeah. Yeah, Michael Moore, Fahrenheit 9/11. Both by Michael Moore. First see Bowling for Columbine, which will explain everything I just explained here, and then go to see Fahrenheit 9/11. Let's see. So back to our regularly scheduled program. But the obvious point that is being made here is that, darn it, is that nations obviously have had a number of different strategies of dealing with the issues of lack of material wealth. And so Costa Rica is one of them. Now, it's not that just Costa Rica is sitting back and being peaceniks. Oh, no military, no peace. And you might be wondering, well, how do they defend themselves? Well, there are international treaties, such as the United Nations treaty that allows for some amount of defense to be made or be made available for nations. And really, Costa Rica, why would anybody attack Costa Rica? And so they really don't have the necessity for the military, perhaps. That maybe, but we're just out of control here. And the way that you're motivated to believe that we need all this military might is through xenophobia, right? Xenophobia is fear of what? Yeah, fear of foreigners. All these foreigners, they're coming over here, they're taking your jobs, they're killing you, they're doing all these bad things. Right? And so therefore, you really don't have a problem with, maybe you will, but if you give to there's only so much money, right? So if you spend this massive amount of money on the military, it's got to be taken away from something else. Like, you want to cut Head Start, early childhood education major. You hear that? They want to cut Head Start. They want to cut Meals on Wheels. I mean, come on now. Yeah, y'all know about that? They want to cut Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels. But we need more bullets and bombs and rockets and tanks. Part of the reason that you should watch Bowling for Columbine is that there are certain people who get rich off of warfare. They're called military contractors. And so the last time I checked, there aren't a whole lot of military contractors in North Nashville or south side of Memphis or in Whitehaven, Blackhaven, Mound, or Opelika, Florida, or Southeast DC. Not a whole lot of military contractors in our neighborhoods. So we're not getting rich off of war, but there's some people get very rich. Have you heard that there's just one plane costs $40 million? That's one plane. Somebody got paid to make that plane, not anybody I know. So there are people getting very, very rich off of warfare And that's all that this is about. But meanwhile, in Costa Rica, there's a very interesting article. It's called a Silicon Republic, which is a play on the term banana republic. So Costa Rica, one of the things that it has been doing is improving its economic status, not by building more bombs, but by creating diverse economic opportunities for its citizens. And so they recruited Intel, which obviously makes computer processors. So high-tech manufacturing is a growth area in Costa Rica that has obviously provided greater employment opportunities for its population besides in agriculture and fishing, and mining, and so on and so forth. And so we're not saying that we should all get rid of money and become socialists. We're not saying that, At one time, I believe, but I'm still a socialist. We don't have time to get into that right now, not today. If the brothers and I start recruiting, we're not going to start recruiting again. Why would I tell you that if we did? Anyway, if we hypothetically started recruiting again, which we're not going to, this is being recorded. Let's get off of that whole topic. So, high-tech manufacturing is part of what economic sector? Secondary. It's manufacturing. Yes, secondary manufacturing. And so you can see when or if you read this article that Costa Rica has literally transformed itself by changing its status. So here in 1986, they were 88% invested in their economy, 88% in agriculture. GDP was only $9 billion. 10 years, a little over 10 years later, now there's 69% in industry, and they have a much stronger economy as a result. Much stronger economy as a result. And so, again, this is a perfect illustration of how we can look at the health and wealth of a nation as something other than money. So even though the United States has wealth, we're not really healthy. Look at what's going on. If we look at gun violence, there are parts of the world where there might be less than 10, significant parts of the world, Japan, parts of Europe, where there might be less than 10 homicides by gun violence per year. In China, the police don't even carry guns. You know that? How about here? There's so many people that get killed here. We don't even pay any mind. We don't even get shot by it. Right? We're kind of numb to it until it happens to somebody that's close to us. I mean, we're all like that. Even those of us who think that we're conscious. I mean, I watch the news. I'm like, wow, that's horrible. That's horrible. But I'm not like, I don't feel devastated by it. Right? Until I was watching the news a little while ago, and I heard about these guys. They were out in Madison, and somebody tried to rob them, carjack them, I guess. Two of them got shot. One of them died. One got shot 9 times. Wow, that's horrible. But he was fighting for his life. They just kind of mentioned that his mother was on the school board. Okay, well. Then on that Sunday, his mother was on the news. It was somebody I've known for years. She actually is on the faculty here, right? You might have heard about it. Now, I don't know how this guy survived, but I don't know. I have to ask her. I haven't talked to her because, obviously she was basically living in the hospital. But yeah, he got shot 9 times, 7 times in the head and lived. Not only lived, it looks like he has no permanent damage. I don't know. Don't ask me. I mean, some things can't be explained. Yeah, but I mean, it was so. before I knew it was somebody's son that was a friend of mine, I was like, wow, that's a shame that these people are shooting each other. But when I found out it was a friend of mine's son, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I didn't know what to say. You know, what do you say to the person? I didn't, and at that time, he was in extremely critical condition. Like, when they said he shot 9 times, his best friend got killed, I thought, well, you know, let's just get ready for the funeral, right? This guy survived. I have no idea how you get shot 7 times in the head and twice in the leg and live. But now he's out of the hospital and took some young lady to the prom this weekend. So, yeah. So I don't know. I haven't talked to her. She's on the faculty. Some of y'all might know who I'm talking about, but I guess when she's ready, we'll get more details. I don't pry into people's stuff. But anyway, but it's all over the news, so it's not like I'm sharing somebody's business. She shared it all on her Facebook page. That's how I know. It's like every day. Wow. You know, I'm thinking the next thing I'm going to see is funeral. Oh. I see this guy walking out of the hospital. Anyway, so, but, you know, we're kind of numb to gun violence in this country. We got tens of thousands of people who are killed every year, right? And then who knows how many wounded. And that just doesn't happen in other parts of the world. But we're wealthy though. We have homeless people in this country. Right? I mean, how can we have homeless people in the United States of America? That's always been interesting that we have homeless people here. But what happened when the homeless population started to increase in downtown Nashville, or not really, when gentrification occurred in downtown Nashville. Some of you all heard about gentrification. Nashville started to use the police to manage the homeless population. And as a result, things that used to just be not even a fine, they would just say, oh, well, just move along, homeless person. Now that person's got to go to jail. Relieving yourself on the sidewalk, jail. Sleeping in your car, jail. There was a study done a couple of years ago that showed that for the amount of money that Nashville spends locking up homeless people, we could house all of them. You know, it costs money to lock people up. You do know that, right? How much money do you think it costs to lock up a person for a year in this country, approximately?
$43,000.
Yeah, about $40,000, $50,000 a year. How much is tuition here at TSU out of state?
$35,000.
So, for the amount of money that we spend locking people up, and what's the world's leading nation in terms of incarceration? United States. Wow, aren't you glad you're here? You got Trump as president. You're locking people up more than anybody else in the world. You're killing people all over the world. God bless. Come on, just join in. Right? I mean, come on. But I'm making a point here that just because, you know, wealth is here, that doesn't mean that everything is great. And just because people don't have money or nations don't have money, doesn't mean it's horrible there. And that can go for people. There are people that there are people that said that they didn't even know they were poor until they left home. They didn't realize it. And we've always had low income and poverty in the African American community, but we just didn't have this kind of depravity, killing each other, undervaluing education, promoting foolishness, misogyny. And we didn't have this foolishness, even as poor as we were. Do you know that in 1968, 68% of African American households were in poverty in 1968? 68%. Only 3% of African Americans had 4-year college degrees in, say, 1968. But yet here we are in 2017, and we got killing, just all kinds of stuff going on. Trump is president. Anyway, enough depressing news, because I have good news and I have other news coming up right now. I think I talked about this. So I have good news and I have other news. So first, the good news. At least for some of you all, those of you look like you're in the dentist's office every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when you come in, unless you want to be a dentist. But the rest of y'all don't want to be here. So you don't have to be here on Wednesday. That's the good news. But the other news is that you have assignments, of course, in lieu of class. So it's state law. State law. I cannot cancel class without giving you something to do. Because you paid for your education, I'm gonna give you some this week. You're paying for it. You're not giving it to you. You paid for this. So you have 2 assignments on deck. I talked about these a little bit last time. So writing assignment 5 for those of you who are planning on being teachers is to essentially follow these instructions, and as a group, by next Tuesday, well, actually, that's going to be next Monday for you all. That's going to be Monday, the 10th. You will complete a good draft of your term paper. So you know what GLOBE is. Again, the main objective is the development of a complete lesson plan based upon the GLOBE and WeatherBug protocols for K through 12 students. Be creative. You can even Google GLOBE lesson plans. Now don't copy and paste. Don't cheat. Goodness, you all better than that. So notice this is the group assignment. I want to see at least a decent draft. Therefore, that way I can tell you if you're on the right track or not. Now, if you're really good, you might get together with your group and really pound this thing out this week, right? We're going to lay this down this week, and you turn it in, I'll be like, you know what, y'all are done. I'm going to grade this right now. Hey, good for the done. It's out of the way. That's probably not going to happen, but at least I'll be able to say this part is good, that's bad. You can fix it. That's why I want you to turn in a draft. So you have all the instructions here. If you have questions, I will be on the planet. You can email me if you have questions. This year, once again, yes, question.
So we just have to do a list of
Exactly. Right. That is exactly right.
Does that matter what
No, but just kind of run it past me first. If you're going to go to the next level, just run it past me first. This year, there's going to be a total solar eclipse right here in Nashville. You can read about it. You might want to consider having a lesson plan based upon the solar eclipse. You'll get big points for that. You do that. Yes. Globe, if you want to create an elementary globe or K through 12, what happened was GLOBE at first was for high school students and middle school students, and now it has kind of transformed into this elementary part is kind of new. Yes, question.
What's the assignment for those who's?
I'm getting to that right now. Yes, of course I wouldn't go to. Oh no, you guys have the week off because no, of course not. Yes, question.
Can you make a low sheet?
Oh, there will be. Oh, sure. Just sign your name. Sure here. It looks like my plan is not going to be what I thought. Okay, I'm going to have even more good news in a moment. Okay, so those of you who are working on the GLOBE project, you work in your groups. How are you going to work? Groups. You know who you are. And it looks like we haven't had a whole lot of casualties, so I think people are still in the class. Okay, for the rest of you all, who are not planning on being teachers, and we know who you are. you will have a GIS assignment that you'll work on as individuals. So those of you working on this GIS writing assignment 5, you are not working in groups, okay? Okay, so for those of you doing this assignment, are you working as individuals or in groups? Individuals. I don't want to see, anyway. You had not told us, Dr. Padgett, that, no, I'm telling you, no, individuals. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is select 5 countries from Latin America, Mexico, Latin America, Caribbean, or South America. So here we talk about the GNI per person. One country must be in this range, and next country between that range. And get this from either the Population Bureau, Population Data Sheet that you're working with. So those are your 5 countries. That's the breakdown of GNI per person. Then you will create population pyramids. I think I already showed you how to do this in class once. At the IDB International Database webpage, the instructions are here. You all are good at following instructions. Step 1, step 2. So after you create from the IDB website, or from the 2014 World Population Data Sheet, you'll get the rate of national increase. And that way you'll calculate the doubling time for each country and the United States. So you'll create 6 population pyramids. Okay, so according to these instructions, you'll calculate each country's doubling time. So you'll get one population graph from 2016, which is the most recent year. And then when you calculate the doubling time for the population, you'll create a second population pyramid based upon when that country's population is expected to double. So for example, if you find a country that has a rate of natural increase of 3% per year, 70 divided by 3 is approximately 23. 23 plus, in this case, 2017 will be 2040. So you'll go in, create a second population pyramid for 2040. So at the end of creating your population pyramid, you'll have 12 of them. Okay, 2 for each country in Latin America, Caribbean, Mexico, and the United States. And then, bless you. So here are the instructions. Just look at these screen caps. It's very easy to do. Now, here's the hard part. This is the one part of this that's going to be difficult. Because we're using the free version of ArcGIS Online, you cannot pull those JPEG images of your population pyramids from your hard drive into the ArcGIS Online map. You have to pull them from a Google account. Make sure the images are shared publicly. So if you don't have a Google account, if you don't have a Gmail address, just create one. Go to Google+, save the images in Google+, share them publicly. Then what you're going to use is the ESRI ArcGIS Online Story Map site, which is essentially a template. And just follow the instructions to say you're going to build a map tour. And essentially what you're going to do is follow the instructions to pull each population graph for each country and link it to a point symbol on the map. Okay. And then after that, so here are the instructions. So what you'll wind up with is, say, here's Antigua and Barbuda, in 2050 population graph. You have two population, 2015, that's a good example. And then you have a caption written that will show up when somebody else, or anybody else, finds your site, clicks on it, and they can have a little tour of the countries and various information about the countries. So what you should include in the captions, just a 100-word caption or so. You know, what about this country's GNI/PPP per person and the U.S.? Maybe you could post their mortality rates. This is wide open. You might say, well, this country has a GNI/PPP per person of $10,000 per year. However, the infant mortality rate is only such and so forth. That's kind of what you want. You want to have like a little fact box, a kind of did you know box for each population graph based upon the population graph. It's wide open, but you have to pull your data from specific sources. This is not meant to be an op-ed piece. And then follow the instructions to save your map in ArcGIS Online, so you'll have your own account. So there are instructions there how to set up your own account, and then share it, and then copy the URL, paste the URL into this document, and or into the comments box, and then upload it to the Dropbox. It's just that simple. So the only thing you're really going to turn in is your map, is the link to that map, and it has to be set to public. If I were you GIS people, I would get started early because this is not going to be easy. If you wait till next Sunday to start working on this, you're not going to make it, trust me. As soon as you get stuck, try it a couple of times. If you're still stuck, email me because you're probably not going to be able to figure it out. Okay, this is not easy. Okay, so work with each other. Some of you all have already used GIS in here. Okay, the other piece of good news I have for you, it's good news and bad news. You were going to have a quiz today, but you're going to get it Wednesday, but it's going to be accessible from the eLearn page. So here's what you're going to do. The instructions will be there. You'll download it in Word. There's a Word document. You'll answer the questions and upload it. It's only going to be available from 8 a.m. until noon on Wednesday or so. So you have to go in, download it, answer the questions. You have 4 hours to do the quiz. So I should have a whole lot of 10 out of 10s on this one. Yes, you can use whatever sources are available to you. It will not be closed book, but you only have a short amount of time to do it. If you have any questions about that, please email me. Thank you very much. See you next week. If you haven't signed the roll, sign it. Yes. I know what it is. Just email it to me first, and I'll take a look at it, and I'll say yes, yeah, but, or definitely not. Yeah, but just send it to me first. You are.
Yeah, we pretty much for the maps, same.
So you're just going to have one map with 12 population pyramids on the map.
One map for 12 periods. And what time is it?
Yeah, just the link.
What time is it? We'll try to get that. Is it possible maybe to use that extra credit?
I mean, what? Try to do it one more time, and when you get the error message, you take a screenshot of the error message and send it to me. Okay. We'll do it that way. What did you do?
I've been using my credit card. So he cut off my credit card and I need to
You got some hard issues now.
yeah, I'm trying to see how much.
Yes. Just email me and I can tell you, don't even, if you,